Hey people, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 61 of Hockey on the Spot. And yes, folks, here it is. The regular season has begun, and we had some really good games last night. There were three of them. But before we get into each of them, there were a few more final off-season updates that occurred before the action began. So we're going to go over those real fast. And normally we do the games first, but this time we're going to do the updates first because they happened before the games, or most of them did anyway. Starting with an update from the Edmonton Oilers, who played last night. They have announced that in addition to naming Andrew Ference their captain, they're going to have 6 different players who will switch off between alternate captains, and they are the following: Jordan Eberle, Sam Gagner when he returns, Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins when he returns, Nick Schultz, and Ryan Smith. That is a very crazy situation in my personal opinion. Speaking of naming alternate captains, the New York Islanders have named their alternate captains to John Tavares, Kyle Oposo, and Andrew McDonald will bear the responsibilities of alternate captains. The Carolina Hurricanes at long last have placed defenseman Yoni Pitkinen on long-term injured reserve. This has been a move that have done a long time ago, and I'm glad they finally do it now. Meanwhile, they have also placed defenseman Matt Corrente on waivers. Former first-round pick, 30th overall by the New Jersey Devils in 2006, has far from lived up to his draft status. So it's been really unfortunate. The Tampa Bay Lightning have placed defenseman Matthias Ohlund on long-term injured reserve. Ohlund has not played a game for the Tampa Bay Lightning since 2011, the 2011 playoffs, where he scored his only goal as a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And he has been a major disappointment in the Tampa Bay Lightning uniform, even when healthy. But again, I'm glad they're finally doing this, get that big contract off their back at least for now. And by doing this, they have also were able also to recall Andre Pallett from the Syracuse Crunch of the American Hockey League. He played quite a bit last year and was pretty solid. Boston Bruins forward Carl Soderberg has been ruled out of the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi because of his decision to leave Team Sweden for the Boston Bruins last season. So Carl Soderberg will not be eligible to play for Team Sweden in the Olympics for the upcoming year. And honestly, I don't know how. I don't see why, because he's a really good player and he didn't really do anything wrong. But he left his team from Sweden last year to play for the Boston Bruins. He's going to be a good player for them. He'll be a good forward for them. And it's a shame he won't be able to play in the Olympics. Also, on more alternate captain news, when Andrew Ference was an alternate captain with the Boston Bruins, his A will now be rotated between 2 players, David Krejci and Chris Kelly. Those 2 will rotate through the A this season, and honestly, we'll see which one is better. New York Rangers forward Ryan Callahan will miss the team's season opener on Thursday night against the Phoenix Coyotes as he continues to recover from recent shoulder surgery. But he is making good strides. He has been cleared for contact, and it won't be before long before Ryan Callahan is able to return. Carl Hagelin, on the other hand, he's got a bit to go. He was placed on long-term injured reserve and must miss at least 10 games. The NHL has modified how it will enforce the quote-unquote jersey tuck rule. If the sweater tucks while a player is skating, there will be no warning or penalty providing it was untucked at the beginning of a shift. I actually think that's good because it wouldn't be fair to the player. I still don't like the rule, period. I don't see a point to it, but at least that's a little bit of leniency right there. Yeah, it is a bit of leniency right there. So that at least gives the player some freedom a little bit. And also, as of 7:30 p.m. last night, the Tampa Bay Lightning have named their new captain. It will be Martin St. Louis over Steven Stamkos, and honestly, that is the right choice because yes, that is the most definite right choice because he is the oldest player on the team. He has the most experience. He has all the Stanley Cup experience. So he's going to be a good captain for them. He'll be able to fill Marty St. Louis' shoes. Vinny Lecavalier's shoes for sure. And last but certainly not least, there were a couple of contract signings. The Pittsburgh Penguins have signed forward Chuck Kobasu to a one-year contract worth $550,000. Good for them. He was very good for them in the preseason. Very big surprise for them in the preseason, actually. This is a sniper, and he'll get some goals up on the board for them. For a team that already is loaded with offense, Chuck Kobasu, if he gets on his game, will give them even more offense. And then last but not least, forward Guillaume Latendresse, who had originally was with the Phoenix Coyotes on a pro tryout basis, was released. He has officially signed a one-year contract with the Zurich Lions of the Swiss League, of the Swiss League. So that's a good move. So he leaves the NHL at least for one season to go play in Switzerland. And that is all the updates. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let's waste no more time. Let's get right into last night's action from the first regular season games, starting with the game that kicked off all the festivities and a real good matchup too. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec. A real big night for the fans to be a part of. Danny Briere was the first player, the newcomer of the Montreal Canadiens, was the first player to hold the torch before passing it off to everybody else, to Brandon Prost to do the chain properly. Big moment in the career of Danny Briere, who grew up watching the Montreal Canadiens as a child. Unfortunately, though, the night overall, as memorable as the opening of the night was, it would not be a memorable ending. Definitely a forgettable ending for Montreal Canadiens fans. The Toronto Maple Leafs coming up huge with a 4-3 win in Montreal. So, big game by the Toronto Maple Leafs, who really look good this season. And the 2013-2014 season kicked off. The first goal of this whole entire season of any team was scored by James Van Riemsdyk on the power play, assisted by Phil Kessel and Cody Franson. So James Van Riemsdyk gets the first goal of the entire season. Phil Kessel and Cody Franson get the first assists of the season. So congratulations to them. Then after that, the Toronto Maple Leafs, after surrendering a 2-1 lead, went on a flurry, especially in the second period. Dion Phaneuf would tie the game, assisted by Nazem Kadri and Nikolai Kulemin. Then Tyler Bozak would score the first shorthanded goal of the season by any team, unassisted. Remembering they gave Tyler Bozak that big contract. He's looking to have a big season. And then Mason Raymond, who would score his first goal as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. That would go on to be the eventual game winner, assisted by Troy Bodie, who has not played a National Hockey League game since playing for the Carolina Hurricanes. So he also would get his first point as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So lots and lots of action. And James Reimer would get the start in net last night for the season opener. The Toronto Maple Leafs will play again tonight against the Philadelphia Flyers, and Jonathan Bernier will get the start tonight. But James Reimer was excellent. He was the game's first star. Number 34 would make 34 saves on 37 shots, a .919 save percentage. So very, very good night for him. For the Montreal Canadiens, they got some scoring. All of their scoring coming from their kid line, their third line, including a 2-goal, 3-point performance by Lars Eller, who was the game's second star. He had the goal that tied the game at 1, assisted by Rafael Diaz and Alex Galchenyuk. Then Brendan Gallagher would make it 2-1, assisted by Lars Eller and Alex Galchenyuk. Galchenyuk with 2 assists and Gallagher a goal. And then when in the dying minutes of the game, Lars Eller would cut Toronto's 4-2 lead to 4-3 unassisted. That would be Lars Eller's second of the game, but unfortunately they did not have it in them to make a total comeback. Again, James Reimer was the first star and Lars Eller was the second star. Tyler Bozak was the third star. Carey Price got the starting goal for the Montreal Canadiens. He also would make 34 saves, but on 38 shots rather than 37, an .895 save percentage. So both goaltenders were actually really good. Price was a little shaky in the beginning, but despite letting up 4 goals, he actually was pretty rock solid. Other news in the game, lots of penalties broke out. Defenseman Mark Frazier, the Toronto Maple Leafs, would get 14 minutes in penalties. And then Colton Orr and George Parros would lead the game with 20 penalty minutes each, and then 7 minutes each for Brandon Prust and Travis Moen. George Parros, unfortunately, would suffer a concussion going down onto the ice fighting Colton Orr. He fell flat on his face on the ice and suffered a concussion. He was taken off via stretcher, and he could miss some time during the season. He did not play in the preseason, and this is a big loss for the Montreal Canadiens. They brought him in from the Florida Panthers to give them size and grit. Now they lose that size and grit, and who knows for how long. You never know how long it takes for players to come back from concussions. So with that being said, hope that George Parros gets better. And congratulations to the Toronto Maple Leafs on the first win of the 2013-2014 season. Next up, we have the game to watch from last night's action. The Washington Capitals and the defending Stanley Cup champions Chicago Blackhawks. It was the night of the banner for the Chicago Blackhawks. Their home opener, they played each other in Chicago in the final preseason game, and now they played each other in Chicago for the first regular season game. Again, it was the Stanley Cup banner night for the Chicago faithful. They raised all the banners for their President's Trophy, Western Conference champions, and Central Division champions. And then the big one, the Stanley Cup banner for 2013. It was a big night. However, we all know the history. Before this game, 4 out of the last 5 teams had lost their home opener on banner raising night. The only team to do it before the Chicago Blackhawks was the 2009-2010 edition of the Pittsburgh Penguins. They defeated the New York Rangers on banner night by a final score of 3-2. The Chicago Blackhawks would end that streak against the Washington Capitals, winning by a final score of 6-4. It was a big night, and it was a really good game. Chicago Blackhawk goals being scored by Brandon Bollig. He surprisingly scores the first goal of the Blackhawks season, assisted by Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Marcus Kruger. Then Patrick Kane would make the game 2-1 after it was tied 1 apiece, assisted by Jonathan Taves and Michael Roosevelt. Then Brent Seabrook would score on the power play, assisted by Marian Hossa and Brandon Saad. Then Brandon Saad would score a goal, assisted by Michael Handzus and Duncan Keith. And then Johnny Oduya would score a fluke goal that Braden Holtby wished that he would have back, assisted by Brandon Saad and Nicholas Hjalmarsson. That would turn out to be the game winner. And then 9:22 into the game, Marian Hossa would be taken down by defenseman Mike Green on a breakaway with an empty net, and that would be count as an automatic goal. An empty net goal unassisted for Marian Hossa to close out the game. Corey Crawford got the full start in goal. He was brilliant. 28 saves on 32 shots and .875 save percentage. For the Washington Capitals, even though they lost, it wasn't all in vain, as they had a franchise record set last night. Mikhail Grabovski would set the franchise record for most points by a first-game Washington Capital in a game. Mikhail Grabovski not only would have an assist on their first goal by Alex Ovechkin, but he would also go on to score a hat trick. So, with that being said, the 3 out of the 4 Washington goals came on the power play. Chicago's penalty kill really struggled last night, with the exception of killing off a 5-on-3 at the end of the game. The first goal again being scored by Alex Ovechkin on the power play. Quite fitting that their star opens up the scoring for them. He will not have to wait a long time before getting his first goal this time around. Again, assisted by Mikhail Grabowski and Nicholas Backstrom. And then after that, it was all Mikhail Grabowski. He then scored even strength, assisted by Joel Ward. And then he scored 2 power play goals, both primarily assisted by Mike Green. On the first one, Alex Ovechkin would get the secondary assist. And on the second one, it would be Nicholas Backstrom getting the secondary assist. So a big night for Mikhail Grabowski, who earned second star honors, while Johnny Oduya would become the third star and Brandon Saad the first star. So a good night all around. Braden Holtby, with the exception of that Johnny Oduya goal, actually played pretty solid. 29 saves on 34 shots and .853 save percentage. Obviously a night he'd like to have back, but what can you do, right? Anyway, congratulations to the Chicago Blackhawks, who stone cold Alex Ovechkin's 9 shots on goal that led all players in the game. So congrats to the defending Stanley Cup champions on becoming the first banner team to win their home opener since the 09-10 Pittsburgh Penguins. And last but not least, the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton, the largest fan base in the NHL right now, the Edmonton Oilers. Unfortunately, though, they would have to see their team lose the first game. The Winnipeg Jets coming up with a big road win by a final score of 5-4. Winnipeg goals being scored by Mark Scheifele on the power play, assisted by Dustin Byfuglien and Tobias Enstrom. Then Brian Little would put them up 2-1. They were down 1-0, assisted by Tobias Enstrom and Dustin Byfuglien. Then, after trailing the game 4-2, it was all Winnipeg after that, including a 2-goal performance by newcomer and defending Cup champion Michael Frolik. He came over in a trade from the Chicago Blackhawks at the draft. He would score the next goal, assisted by Zach Bogosian and Jacob Trouba. And then Jacob Trouba, who was part of the 2013 World Junior Championship USA team, would get his first NHL goal unassisted. And then Michael Frolik's second goal of the game would be the game winner, assisted by Eric Tangradi and Dustin Byfuglien. Andre Pavlik was pretty good, making 34 saves on 38 shots, an .895 save percentage. For the Edmonton Oilers, they scored the first goal of the game. Luke Gazdic, who they claimed off waivers from the Dallas Stars earlier this year, would score his first NHL goal, assisted by Will Acton, who would score his first NHL assist. Then Boyd Gordon would score his first as an Oiler on the power play, assisted by Justin Schultz and Ales Hemsky. Then Ales Hemsky would score, assisted by Taylor Hall and Ryan Smith. And then on the power play, Jesse Joensuu, the former New York Islander, would score his first as an Oiler, assisted by Jordan Eberle and Marco Arcobello, his first NHL assist. Devin Dubnyk got the starting goal. He was just okay. He made 23 saves and 28 shots and .821 save percentage. 3 stars of the game, Jesse Joensuu, the third star for the Oilers, and then the Winnipeg Jets after that. Michael Frolik, the second star, and the youngster Jacob Trouba, the first star. So congratulations to the Winnipeg Jets. And that is it for our first regular season action. And there's definitely more to come. 3 more games tonight. The Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings. That will be the game to watch in Detroit. Then the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're second on a back-to-back situation against the Philadelphia Flyers. Jonathan Bernier and Steve Mason expected to start that game. And then the Anaheim Ducks and the Colorado Avalanche to close it off. And then most of the teams start their regular seasons tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. But first, we'll worry about tonight's action. So watch the games tonight. And thank you for joining. This has been episode 61 of Hockey on the Spot. This has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thank you and have a great day.